Yeah, let's start with a little generating positive motivation, generating mind of refuge. So, yep, gather your attention, focusing on an object of meditation for a minute or so. And then visualize yourself surrounded by all sentient beings, beginning with your parents to your right and left. So your mother of this life to your immediate left, and then all your female family and friends to your left and behind you. Your father of this life on your immediate right, and all your male family and friends to your right, behind you. And those you're most prone to become upset, angry with, directly in front of you, facing towards you. And then all the other sentient beings seated all around as vast as space. Remember your interconnectedness with them and how they're all the same as oneself in taking rebirth and then living and dying, experiencing death and taking rebirth again and again. And then reflecting on this session we're about to engage in, this last session in the module on impermanence and death. And think about your reasons for being here and try to connect it with all the other aspects of Dharma that inspire you and your highest objectives and aims and your wish to benefit yourself and benefit others. And generate a positive motivation. And then if you like, you can visualize the field of refuge in the space before you. Whatever you like, Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, or any other object of refuge. Imagine it in the space before you, the height of your forehead. And then generate the mind of faith and their ability to guide you on a spiritual path to liberation and enlightenment. And protect you from the suffering of lower realms and of samsara in general. Generate the mind of going for refuge. Okay, then we can begin. So this is our last teaching session in this module. So I just spoke with Venerable Namjung yesterday about the next module. He'll do, so that'll be a module on karma, will be next. But before that, we need to do, we need to do the self-assessment kind of exam, and then the interviews, and then a couple of retreat days. So we're planning to do, I think I mentioned last time at the end of the session, we're planning to do the retreat days on February 5th and 6th. And yeah, the interview times were actually what we discussed earlier. Marilyn have to change, plans changed, but we can discuss that. We'll announce that later. And then the self-assessment, I don't know, I'll send out sometime in the next week, probably, and then you'll have, 10 days or 2 weeks or so to complete it yourself. Okay, so this is the last session, the 6th teaching session in this module on impermanence and death. And it's just kind of a wrap-up session. The topic actually is, I think, to look at my outline again, I was how to prepare for death and help the dying. So how to prepare for death is kind of what we've been talking about the whole time. And help the dying, how to help others is something we haven't talked about much. Yeah, kind of the main thing I want to do is read a couple of poems actually about death, one by Paponka Rinpoche and one by the 7th Dalai Lama. Because I think one thing, we've gone through a lot of outlines. I know I like to make a lot of outlines and PowerPoints. So, but it's easy. Well, we have to translate like from our intellectual understanding about everything around death to a more kind of experiential understanding. So partly that's what meditation is for, and discussion. But it's very helpful also not just to read like Lamrim texts or explanatory texts, but to read poetry about reflections on impermanence and death, especially by past masters. So there's some really beautiful poems about impermanence and death. So I just picked 2 that I'll read today, and we can contemplate. But before that, so how to prepare for death? Just I guess just a few kind of final words are. It's kind of like you can see, I think, in the Buddhist view that it's kind of like every day of life, every moment of life should be preparation for death in a way. That we're encouraged all to be continually mindful of the fact that this life doesn't last long. Every moment we're coming closer to death, and that juncture of passing away from this life, it's not just an end, of course, but it's just a transition period where we'll most likely be transition into a next life. So obviously, we've all taken rebirth as human beings now, and in pretty good circumstances, quite fortunate circumstances. So last time we did a really good job of dying and passing away, taking rebirth. So we want to repeat that. We want to do that again. So, I mean, it's kind of helpful because sometimes I think when we think about dying, it feels like something, we've never done before. It's never happened before, kind of scary. But in the Buddhist view, we've done it many times, infinite times. And just the fact that we're a human being here, and have the fortune and leisure to be able to take interest in Dharma teachings, receive Dharma teachings, and reflect on it means like we've accumulated a lot of merit in the past, and we've really created good causes to be able to meet good conditions, to be able to use our lives well, and be able to actually think about preparing for death in this life. So we have to, so that can give us some encouragement. Well, I've done, I kind of did a lot of the requisite things to take a good rebirth before. So I can probably do it again. right? We put our minds to it. So what did we do last time? Well, to take rebirth as a human being, remember the main cause is practicing pure morality. So it means in past life, in either our immediate past life or whichever past life was a cause for taking rebirth in this life. Because remember, the karmas that we create in one life, they don't necessarily ripen in the immediate subsequent life, right? There can be in between. We'll come back to that later in the course, but it's not that, whatever karma we create this life, it necessarily ripens in the next life. Each life we accumulate lots and lots of karma. So in our mind stream, we have this whole, it's like a seed bank. We have this whole collection of different karmas. So it's not certain which one's going to ripen and throw the next life. It could be a karma we created this life, or it could be a karma that we created past life, or thousands of lives ago that ripens. Which is why, there's a trigger. That's why it's so important to have a virtuous state of mind as we're dying, because that's the trigger, that last state of mind that we have just as we're dying. In just the hours, minutes, or hours, or even days, as we're our final like moments of consciousness in this life, then that mind, whether it's virtuous or non-virtuous or neutral, is the main trigger that causes one of our karmas to throw a rebirth, or throwing karmas. One of our karmic seeds to produce our next life is triggered by the mind at the time of death, basically. So that's one of the main reasons it's so important to prepare for dying. And so the main thing then is to to practice, habituate our minds to habitually generate the kind of virtuous attitudes that we want to have at death. So it'll just be automatic that that's just the way we think. That's just the way we look at things. So for each of us, with the sort of the virtuous attitude, whether it's love and loving kindness, universal love, or compassion, or wisdom, understanding impermanence, or wisdom reflecting on selflessness, or emptiness, or just generosity, or the wish not to harm others, or whatever. So whatever virtuous attitude we have the strongest affinity with, right, that we naturally can generate, or could be, although there's so many, right? It could also be just the recognition of the natural purity of our mind, or the good nature, the people's, good nature, our potential for full enlightenment. That every sentient being has a potential for full enlightenment. So, but whatever virtuous, or another one is, like I mentioned earlier, most Tibetans have this single-pointed faith in the Dalai Lama. That's a very strong part of Tibetan culture. So it can also be, single-pointed faith in your own teacher, as whole as Dalai Lama, or another teacher, or just in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha in general, or Jesus, Mary, Muhammad, whatever. Whatever is your object of faith. So it's important to habituate ourselves to virtuous attitudes in general, which means on a day-to-day, recognizing when we generate non-virtuous attitudes like anger, irritation, selfishness, impatience, cynicism, being cynical, or self-deprecating, all kinds of non-virtuous attitudes. We need to recognize those and try to continually abandon those on a day-to-day, and replace them in their place. Self-deprecation, generate in its place, try to generate self-compassion, just caring for oneself, self-love. In place of anger, try to generate patience, loving kindness. In place of selfishness, try to generate stronger concern with others. So on a day-to-day, we have to recognize all those negative attitudes which do arise in our mind. And so if they arise in our mind now, while we're healthy and kind of strong, then of course, when we're really weak, and in pain, there's more likelihood for them to arise. Just as we can see when we're hungry, even in one day, when we're hungry and tired, we're much more likely to get annoyed than when we're kind of well fed and well rested. Right. So you can imagine at the time of death, it's just that exponentially the case, that we weak, pain, uncomfortable, maybe confused, so forth. And so we won't have much control over our mind. So we can see it'll be very easy for the non-virtuous attitudes that we habitually give rise to come to mind then. So we have to reduce the chance of that by, in our daily life, recognizing when non-virtuous states of mind arise and trying to apply the antidotes and generate the opposite, positive states of mind. So we have to, in short, we have to try to habituate ourselves to positive states of mind day to day, but especially, identify those one has the strongest affinity with, so that, and then when we actually do the meditation on death and dying, like we did the session before last, when we did the 8 absorptions at the time of death. So when we actually, it's good to regularly meditate, in such a way that you actually imagine, dying. Imagine the scene of your death, whether it's, your room at home or hospital or whatever, and imagine the 8 stages of absorption at the time of death, and practice at each stage, of the dying process, focusing your mind strongly on the virtuous attitude that you feel the strongest affinity with. So that's kind of one of the main ways to prepare. So that's one of the, so again, that's back to the trigger, like the final attitude, mental state we have as we die is like the trigger that causes the karma to throw our next life to ripen. So, so I was saying, one of the main cause for us having taken rebirth now as a human being is having practiced pure morality. Is a practice of not harming others, abandoning stealing, abandoning killing, abandoning lying. Because that gives rise to because when we abandon harming others, right, it gives them peace. What we're giving them is like safety and peace, that they're not going to be harmed by us, so other people feel safe around us. So that's the kind of karma we create, and we can see as human beings, compared to other animals, we're incredibly safe. I say other animals in the Buddhist worldview, we're not animals, right? And the scientific Western scientific view, we're just a very complex animal. But in the Buddhist view, we're humans and animals are fundamentally different. But anyway, we can see compared to animals, we're incredibly safe. We don't have to worry about being eaten like mosquitoes have to be worried about eating birds. Smaller birds have to worry about being eaten by bigger birds. Big birds have to be worried about getting pounced on by cats or something. So yeah, we're incredibly safe, and yeah, I'm not sure intelligence. How is it that I don't know. I don't think practicing pure morality doesn't practicing pure morality as a main cause for taking rebirth as a human doesn't explain every aspect of, because one of the main features of us as a human is our intelligence, right? So I'm not sure how morality really relates to intelligence. Definitely having a peaceful state of mind, not having to worry about just bare survival all the time does enable you to think about things, have time to think about things. But I think probably another cause for taking rebirth as a human is using whatever intelligence we have, just using it, right? Um, Especially using it in a positive way. Although I haven't seen that written clearly. Although the opposite is true, it said that one of the main causes for taking rebirth as a human is just not using our human intelligence to think about things, but just blindly following our hedonistic desires. But anyway, so our past life. So it's not the case necessarily that in our past life we practice pure morality, and that's what causes us to take rebirth now. But it is the case in some past life we practiced pure morality and created the cause to take rebirth as a human. And then in our immediate past life, our final mind at the time of death was virtuous, right? And that triggered the karma to take rebirth as a human, to ripen and throw this life. So we definitely, in our past life, we generated a very virtuous state of mind as we were dying. And probably, at some point, either that life or some previous life, we made strong prayers to take rebirth as a human. And probably made strong prayers to meet some spiritual teaching that we felt affinity with, either Buddhism or something similar to it. Um, so, because things don't happen without a cause, right? So, so taking rebirth as a human, and then having some interest in meeting some spiritual teachings like these, we've all created the causes for that. So if we want to continue, whatever path we want to continue on, we have to think about, well, how to create the causes to be able to keep continuing on it, right? So if you like being human, um, then make strong prayers, take rebirth as a human again and create the causes. I mean, the same goes for, it's not like we have to take rebirth as a human again, right? We can try to take rebirth as in a pure land, right? And a kind of heaven. And so in the Buddhist worldview, there's, every Buddha, when a person becomes enlightened, then they also, at the same time that they become enlightened, means they sort of create all the causes. It's like they create their enlightened person, right? Then they also create an enlightened environment in which other beings, other sentient beings with the appropriate causes can take rebirth into that environment, and it's kind of an ideal place to receive teachings and progress on the path very quickly. So some of the famous ones you might have heard of is like Amitabha's Pure Land. There's a whole, if you've heard of Pure Land practice in the Chinese Buddhist tradition, it's one of the very mainstream kind of lineages of practice, Pure Land practice. So it's very common in Chinese among Chinese culture, in Chinese culture, I guess you can say. In mainland China, it's communist, so it's not so common. But in Thailand, sorry, not Thailand, Taiwan, you can see it's very common. People will meet you with the, Amitabha, Amitabha when they meet. Amitabha is Chinese for Amitabha, Buddha. So it's very common to people, for Buddhists and Chinese culture, to focus their practice on taking rebirth in Amitabha's Pure Land. As Buddha of, I think Amitabha's means infinite light. But every Buddha has a Pure Land, there's Tara's Pure Land, Medicine Buddha's Pure Land. Every Buddha has a Pure Land. So you can also pray to take rebirth there. You'll see in the required reading we did, I think in both Lama, what the longest piece by Lama Yeshe, I don't remember the title, but it's mainly about doing poa practice related to taking rebirth in Amitabha's Pure Land, which I haven't talked about poa in this course, but and then Lama Zopa Rinpoche's article also talks a bit about that. Poa practice is where you as you're dying, you you meditate on sending your consciousness out through the crown of your head and sending it to a pure land. It's also something sometimes, oftentimes in traditional Buddhist cultures, I mean Tibetan Buddhism especially, when a person dies, then the family will often call a lama or a monk or someone to come and do poa for the deceased person. So it means instead of the person themselves meditating, imagining sending their consciousness out through their crown to a pure land, the Lama, some will come to their bedside and imagine doing that for them. Yeah. And like His Holiness Dalai Lama often says, the best poa is compassion or bodhicitta. Right? So the best way to send our minds to a good rebirth is just to meditate on compassion, on bodhicitta at the time of death. Um, so I was kind of thinking about, I don't know, an analogy for this Buddhist view of death, of life, that all of our life is kind of a preparation for the moment of dying. It's kind of like the best analogy I could come up with is like when we're going to school and thinking about graduating and getting a job. It's kind of a big transition period. All those years of studying from first grade, second grade, elementary school, and middle school, and high school, and then college. It's kind of probably not at first grade, it's probably not there so much, but pretty quickly. It's kind of in the back of our mind that, well, eventually I'm going to not be a student anymore and I'm going to have to go out in the real world and get a job. And it's kind of like I can go two directions. Now I can get a really good job and my life will be on a good trajectory. And I just, I make money and get a house, and find a partner and raise a family, or I don't, and I just kind of become, I don't know, whatever. I'm just bagging groceries the rest of my life. And then just kind of, and eventually get addicted to drugs and end up in the gutter or something like that. So it's kind of, it's kind of similar to that. So I better study well. Every day you're like, okay, I better do my homework. I better prepare for this exam. I better do the readings. I better, show up to class or else. So it's kind of like that. Like in the Buddhist worldview, it's like eventually we're going to die. Death is definitely going to come. And at the time of death, there's only two paths. Either we take rebirth in the upper realm or we take rebirth in the lower realm. Right. And so, every day and that, but it's not like, we know when we're going to graduate. Here, it's like any day that moment could come where the karma to take rebirth in the upper realm or the lower realm ripens, right? So we have to be mindful of death. The death is definitely coming, and we don't know when it's going to happen, which means it could happen any day, right? So today could be, we have to think every day. Today could be my last day. How do I want to, how do I want to use this time so that at the time I'm dying, I don't have any regrets, which means every day try to avoid doing things that we would regret, you know, um, if we died that day. So, so every day we don't die, it's good in the evening, do a meditation session in the evening and just think over the events of that day, what happened, and the things that, maybe we regret, we wish we hadn't said or wish we hadn't done, and recognize those generate regret, and then do some kind of purification practice. Um, yeah, and then try to purify that karma and make a determination not to do that again the next day. Right. So each day we try to kind of be a little better than the day before. Okay, so I think that's the main advice for oneself, how to prepare for death. So again, everything we've discussed in this session, this module is kind of advice for how to prepare for death. But the essential thing, I think, is recognizing death is going to come. We don't know when it's going to come, so being mindful that it could happen anytime, and then really becoming clear in our mind how we want to die, what kind of virtuous attitude, what we want to focus our mind on as we die, and practice that, and then abandon harming others in all cases, in all situations, and make strong prayers. When we dedicate at the end of a meditation session, or at the end of the day, when we dedicate, especially dedicate strongly that we take a good rebirth as a precious human life again, or in a pure land, or when with all the conditions complete, that we can continue on our chosen path, which includes also meeting again those we have good connections with, the people in our lives, whether it's our parents, our siblings, our friends, our partner, our children, our neighbors, whoever, those people who we have kind of virtuous connections with. When we're with them, they encourage us in being a good person, right? And we encourage them that, there's certain people, we have different karmas with different people, right? So some people we meet and we have a negative effect on them, they have a negative effect on us. It's just kind of our karma. And there's other people we meet that we have, we mutually have very positive effect on each other. So it's important also. It's very helpful to meet with those people again in future lives. So we can also make prayers like that. I mean, it's important, especially if we have a spiritual teacher, to pray to meet with them again, never be separated from our spiritual teachers, our spiritual path, and spiritual friends, all of those things. So, yeah, so that's the main advice. So then for helping others, well, yeah, there's different contexts, right? for a person who's also like is maybe into Buddhism also has the same worldview, it's quite easy to talk about. It's more difficult to talk about with people who have completely different kind of worldview, different take on things. But how to help others? I think one of the main things is to show that you're open to talking about death, right? Because many people aren't. I think many people are facing death. They feel they don't know who to talk to about, because in normal society, it's kind of not something you talk about. Um, Many people. So it's good to give, if you can see someone, someone's very sick, or they're, elderly, or you can see they're somehow, death is weighing on their mind. Maybe someone close to them died. Just to show, say something to them, to show that, just to express that you're open to talking about it if they need someone to talk to about death, or if they they need help finding resources about how to prepare for death, that you're available to help them. But one of the main things to remember also is not to proselytize. So don't try to say, oh, I just took this module on permanence of death and Buddhism. There's so much good advice. This is it. Da, 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 da. So you just drive people crazy, and they never want to talk to you again. So it's always advised the Buddha advised, don't basically don't proselytize, don't go pushing advice and teachings on people just because you think that's what you think is best, right? So we have to meet people where they're at, which means asking about, finding out what what they're thinking about, what they need, and then give them the opportunity to inquire. So show that you're open to talking about, um, uh, yeah, death and dying and all the issues related to that. And then see if they, if they're interested, if they want to know more, then they'll express that. If they're not, then can't just leave it. Also, wait for the right time. They might be interested. Yeah. And then when a person is actually dying, um, then the most important thing is to try to help them have a peaceful state of mind as they die. So, um, well, before the person dies, I mean, there's a lot of things like, I mean, it's good that they have help them get in order, the will, what they want to happen with their possessions, and who they want to be present. If there's anyone they don't want to be present as they're dying, then to help arrange that. Um, and then what kind of conditions, what maybe if they want to see any certain images or hear a certain music or certain prayers be played for them, um, or what if they want to be reminded of certain things as they die, it's good to consult with them about all of that. So you can help um, keep their attention on things that they want to keep their attention on as they become more and more weak. um, so yeah, and have certain images by their bedside, play certain prayers. Sometimes people might record their own, they're in, I mean, serious Buddhist practitioners, they do certain prayers every day. Um, and so one might record oneself saying those prayers, and then have a friend play that back as they're dying, or have I know some lamas, they have their students just sit by their bedside and recite the prayers that they would do themselves every day. The students recite those um, as they're dying. The main thing is to have a peaceful environment when a person's dying. So especially nothing that's going to have nothing that's going to cause emotional disturbance. So you don't want to have relatives around that are people arguing, you know, or um, among each other, or people with really strong clinging, grasping mind, like they can't accept the person is dying, and like crying and um, I mean a little quiet tears is like fine, but like um, you know, uh, wailing and oh I can't leave you, don't leave me, what are you doing? How could you leave me here like this now? You don't want to have people in the room like really, yeah, disturbing the mind of the person that's dying, right? You want to make it easy for them to, because it's already difficult enough to, right, to separate from your loved ones, much less if they also totally can't accept it, then it's more difficult, right, and really disturbs the mind. Mm. So it's good, yeah. I mean, which means also it can mean also like helping the whole. It's not just the dying person you have to think about. You have to think about all the people involved in the whole situation and help everyone to be at peace, with it and accept it. Um, yeah. So and if there's the person feels they need to ask someone's forgiveness, help try to arrange that. If there need to be some kind of broken bridges mended before they die, can also try to help that to happen. Um, there need to be some important conversation between a parent, child, or parent, a spouse, or something, um, or a person and a relative. Then you can try to, um, yeah, help that happen, and then and then also have prayers done for the person if they'd like to make donations to, to different a charity or religious organization, then help that to happen so that they know that that's been organized before they die. That can be very helpful. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think that's the main things. I don't know. We can discuss more. We'll have some time for discussion. So I'm sure there's a lot of other advice. I'm sure I haven't covered everything, but um, since there's just 15 minutes left in the time I have, why don't I go ahead and read um, some of these two poems? So, we'll kind of, well, you might want to dim the lights or something. Comfortable, however you like to listen to poetry. Kind of create that space. So this first one is a longer one. It's by Pabanko Rinpoche. So this is from this book. Here, I'll hold up. Art Advice for Retreat by Pabanko Rinpoche. And I'll send it out in the outlines afterwards. I didn't make outlines for the session today. It's published by FPMT, so I think it's from the FPMT store. But I'll send out the title. So this is a very graphic. It's a very graphic poem about, um, the kind of old age and dying. It's a little bit shocking, I think. It's by Pabanko Rinpoche. But I think his emphasis here is really thinking in a very realistic way about what's going to happen as we die, and remembering that, and yeah, and then really trying to prepare to be ready for what's going to happen and really kind of prepare ourselves. Okay, so let's sit quietly for a moment and then I'll read. So as I read, just listen to the words and kind of contemplate. Heart Spoon, Encouragement Through Recollecting Impermanence by Kyabje Pabon Rinpoche. So, the hurt. Fine Lama, look to this pitiful one, how I behaved and how I cheated myself my entire life. Please look upon this mindless one with compassion. The essential advice to give yourself, heart spoon, keep it down within your heart. Don't be distracted. Don't be distracted. Reflect upon the state of your life from the essential drop at your heart. Since beginningless cyclic existence, which hasn't ended up to now, Though you've experienced countless cycles of rebirths, just so many variations on happiness and pain, you've achieved not the slightest benefit from them. And though at present you've attained leisure and fortune, so difficult to find, always till now they've finished and been lost, have been empty and without meaning. Now, if you care about yourself, the time has come to practice the essence of future happiness, virtuous actions. You appear so capable, smart, and clever, but you're a fool as long as you cling to the child's play of the appearances of this life. Suddenly, you're overwhelmed by the fearful Lord of death, and without hope or means to endure, there's nothing you can do. This is going to happen to you because you think, I'm not going to die for some time. I'm not going to die for some time. While you're distracted by the never ending activities of this life, suddenly the fearful Lord of death arrives, announcing, now it's time to die. This is going to happen to you. Though you make arrangements saying tomorrow and tomorrow, just then, suddenly you have to go. This is going to happen to you. And without choice, leaving behind in disarray your left off work, left food and drink, you have to depart. This is going to happen to you. There's no time other than today to spread your bedding and go off to sleep. Upon your last bed, you fall like an old tree, and others, unable to turn with their lily soft hands, tug at your clothes and blanket. This is going to happen to you. Even if you completely wrap your body in last under and outer clothes, still you have no freedom to wear them other than just today. And when that body becomes as rigid as earth and stone, you behold for the first time your own corpse. This is going to happen to you. Though you struggle to speak your last words, your will and expressions of sorrow, pitifully, your tongue dries up and you can't make yourself clear. An intense sadness overwhelms you. This is going to happen to you. Though others put you final food, holy substances, and relics with a trickle of water into your mouth, you're unable to swallow even a single drop, and it overflows from the corpse's mouth. This is going to happen to you. Though surrounded by a circle of close relatives, heart friends, and those near to your heart, and even though they're loving and distressed at the ending of your being together, while crying and clinging, just then you have to separate forever. This is going to happen to you. Though you experience horrific hallucinations like a turbulence of waves and are overcome by unbearable, excruciating pain. Pitiful though you may be, there's nothing to be done. The appearances of this life are setting like the sun. This is going to happen to you. Though with unbearable compassion, your Lama and Vajra friends plead in your ear for a critical virtuous thought to arise. And even though they do so with loving minds, there's no hope. It's unthinkable. This is going to happen to you. With an expelled rasping sound, sur, sur, at the time of death, the movement of your breath builds faster and faster, then breaks like the string of a violin. At the end of your life has come to its close. This is going to happen to you. There'll come a time when your cherished and sadly lost, lovely body is called corpse, disgusting and rotten, and a time when your body, which can't bear even rough bedding and mattress, is laid out on bare ground. This is going to happen to you. There'll come a time when your body, which can't bear even a thorn, is chopped to pieces, and from the bone its flesh is torn, and a time when your body, which can't stand even fleas and lice, is devoured by birds and dogs, till nothing's left. This is going to happen to you. Though you go to so much trouble, blowing pur, in dressing your body in the finest clothes, there'll come a time when that body is placed within a burning house, and your body, which can't tolerate even the fire of a glowing stick of incense, must be burned in the midst of a fiery conflagration. This is going to happen to you. There'll come a time when, entering into roaring flames, all your flesh and bones are burned and reduced to a pile of ash, or a time when your body, which can't bear even heavy cloth, is wedged tight in a hole in the ground. This is going to happen to you. There'll come a time of the announcing the deceased, him or herself, at the beginning and end of your sweet name. This is going to happen to you. And a time when the area is filled with the sobbing sounds of your affectionate, close companions and circle of servants. This is going to happen to you. There'll come a time when your clothes, hats, possessions, and livestock will be divided up, with nothing left in the four directions and corners. And there'll come a time when, in total despair, alone, you reach the passage to the intermediate state. This is going to happen to you. The terrors of the four fearful enemies descending upon you are going to come. The appearance of being trapped under a mountain of packed rock and rubble, and buried beneath a furious avalanche of earth. What to do? The appearance of being set adrift on the surface of a vast sea, and carried away by violent, swirling waves. What to do? The experience of your heart and ears being split open by the sizzling and cackling sounds of a fiery conflagration. What to do? The experience of being enveloped and swept away by the swirling dark winds of the end of an eon. What to do? When you're driven by the powerful red winds of karma and swallowed up by a terrifying darkness. What to do? When you're bound with a lasso by the messengers of Yama and in total despair are led away. What to do? When you're tortured in so many detestable ways by ox and scorpion-headed karmic agents. What to do? When you're before the Yama King, the Lord of Death, as he weighs up the whites and blacks, your virtuous and non-virtuous actions. What to do? When Yama exposes your lie of having spent your human life in attachment, hatred, and deceit. What to do? When at Yama's court, the punishment that is the ripening effect of your negative actions is meted out. What to do? When your naked body is stretched out on the glowing red-hot iron ground of the fires of hell. What to do? Though your body is cut to pieces by a rain of weapons, still you must experience it without dying. What to do? Though you're cooked in molten iron until your flesh falls away and your bones disintegrate, still you must experience it without dying. What to do? Though your body and fire burn inseparably, still you must experience it without dying. What to do? When your body is pierced by a freezing cold wind and cracks into 100,000 pieces. What to do? Having fallen into the miserable state of a hungry ghost with its hunger and thirst, you have to starve for many years. What to do? When you become one of those stupid, dumb, unfortunate animals that eat each other alive. What to do? When the unbearable suffering of the evil gone realms have actually befallen you. What to do? Now, don't be distracted with the sounds of hurrying. La ur, la ur. Right this moment is the time to steel your will. It's not only time, it's almost too late. Right now, apply yourself with great force. Holy precept of the Lama, kind Father, heart of the authoritative scriptures of the victorious Losang. Practice the pure path of complete sutra and tantra. It's time to place real experience upon your mind stream. Who's the faster, Yama, the Lord of Death, or you and your practice of realizing the essence of your eternal dream, the welfare of both yourself and others, as much as you can each day? Unifying the three doors of your body, speech, and mind, put the whole of your effort in practice. So that's this one poem by Pabon Rinpoche, translated by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Because Pabon Rinpoche is quite heavy on the fear of hells and the lower realms, which is probably not so appealing to most people nowadays, but I think in his time in, what is it, the early, 1900s in Tibet, it's probably very, very effective. But anyway, there's still a lot of good to take from it. Okay, so now is another poem. This is by the 7th Dalai Lama, Kelsan Gyatso. And this is in this book, which I'll also send out the name, Songs of Spiritual Experience. It's put together by Thupten Jimpa and Jas Elsner. It's kind of a compilation of poems or songs of songs of the spiritual path by different Tibetan masters in different time periods. So the 7th Dalai Lama lived from 1708 to 1757. So he's now's the 14th Dalai Lama. So this is one of his past incarnations. Yeah. Okay. This one's a little shorter. So it's called Inspire Me to Remember Death. Guru, God of gods, my refuge, my Father, the thought of you alone dispels pain. As I implore you, inspire me to remember death, that I perform a pure Dharma practice. A golden hill ablaze with yellow grass, silver mists hover round it like a belt. Now it's here, now it's not. This brings to mind impermanence. In monsoon, summers of heat and heavy rain, the turquoise fields of wheat heads sway. By autumn, they are desolate. This brings to mind impermanence. Ripe fruits weigh down the summer trees. By winter time, not one remains, for all has fallen to the ground. This brings to mind impermanence. From atop the towering mountain of the east, brilliant, spreads the umbrella of the sun. It does not stay, for it journeys to the west. This brings to mind impermanence. Young men and women in their prime, yesterday, today, and always die. Prayers for their freedom and rebirth are ceaselessly heard. This brings to mind impermanence. Thick clouds cast the sky dense gray, pregnant with rain ready to be dropped. A powerful gale scatters them. This brings to mind impermanence. Amid the glory of a spacious plain are dotted tents of travelers, colorful as the stars. Tomorrow will only twigs and straw remain. This brings to mind impermanence. Nature blooms in the summer's heat. As I relax enjoying this, the first chill winds of winter make me sad. This brings to mind impermanence. The turquoise dragon of thunder high above, and doves who sing melodiously below. Suddenly, not one of them is found. This brings to mind impermanence. Once there lived many holy men whose Dharma medicine cured human ills. Today they watch us from the heavenly realms. This brings to mind impermanence. Our parents who give us birth, and friends and family so hard to part, who pass away. The bonds of closeness remain no more. This brings to mind impermanence. Arrogant youth full of future schemes, meticulously planning the next months and years, is nowhere to be seen. How many loose ends? This brings to mind impermanence. Though the immortal diamond body was attained, even the Buddha too, our refuge, passed away. Our carcass of flesh and blood encased in skin is bound to perish like foam on the water's surface. When grown parents bury a child who dies immediately after birth, I too have given up all hope of an aged death. That though I am young, my body strong and mind fierce. I tend my friends, combat my enemies. How can it be that come the winter time, my corpse will feast the dogs, and vultures of the charnel ground will dine? All human beings whom we see today live no more than 100 years at most. Hardly have I seen one older than this, for each and every one is born to die. When you look with a clear mind, everything in the world everywhere displays the instant dynamism of change. They are all teachers of impermanence. My body grown from childhood showed agility and strength. In old age, when I look now at its parts, they're my own, but too ugly to behold. Feelings of joy and pain recur. Thoughts of vice and virtue fluctuate, and attitudes of indifference arise too. My mind is transient with changing swings. When I look at my own and others' lives, it disturbs me that they flicker like a lightning flash. The harbingers of death surround us all. What good can I do if I survive at all? Though the picture of samsara is bright, family, friends, home, wealth, and everything, the mind becomes impeded by its ties. But this illusion will disappear one day. The body moves on its last bed. Last words are spoken in a slurred way. Last thoughts occur in a clouded mind. When will this moment come for me? My past was full of negative acts. I'm poor in merits for my next rebirth. I have no idea where I'll be going. When I think of dying, I'm afraid. Therefore, I myself and everyone like me should not be beset by trivial chores. Appeal to Guru, Deity, and Dakini to be with us when our roll call comes. It's vital to form the state of mind to die with confidence and joy, with a heart imbued by white karma's light, be grounded in sutra and tantra's depth. By partaking in this discourse, may I and those like me, mind hardened even toward Dharma, be moved toward renunciation. With open spirit, may we be free. Okay. So let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and do some meditation and then have a discussion. So let's do a little meditation now before we talk. We'll do 10 minutes or so meditation. Get comfortable. Your meditation posture, wherever you are. Okay. So I think what we'll meditate on this time is just mindfulness of death, like and impermanence. So if you remember in the second poem I read by the seventh Dalai Lama, the first half of the poem was all about how things that he would observe in the environment around. So he started with like the mist on the mountains, how it's there in the morning and then evaporates, and then the sun rising in the east and then moving across the sky. Those things that show impermanence, that they remind him of his own impermanence and impending demise. And then like the heavy rain clouds gathered in the sky and then they dissipate. The young people, how even young people die. Someone with a lot of plans passes away. So that's the kind of it's very important to generate that kind of mindfulness that when we look at the environment around people around us, that reminds us of our own impermanence and our own impending death, and then reminds us. Then it becomes a reminder to put effort in our spiritual practice, put effort in being a good person. So why don't we meditate on that? So then the way to meditate is just to think about the things that you experience in your own environment, and how they show you and remind you of impermanence. Yeah, in order to generate the mindfulness so that when in everyday life, when we see different things, experience different things, that reminds us about our own impermanence and impending death, and then reminds us of our spiritual practice. Okay, so just try to meditate like that, thinking about different things in the environment that you experience, day to day, month to month, year to year, and how they show you, how they're like teachers of impermanence for you. I think 10 minutes. Okay, so conclude your meditation there. So I think now why don't we do have a breakout rooms discussion for 20 minutes. Okay. And then we'll have 15 or 20 minutes when we come back.
Okay, so for how many minutes to do the breakout rooms?
20.
20. Okay.
20 minutes. I didn't make questions this time, so discuss kind of anything that that we've covered in the whole course. But maybe it's good also to discuss some like concrete experiences you've had with um, either brushes with death yourself or someone close to you dying, or any kind of experience you've had with death and permanence that maybe brings some more kind of concrete detail to the whole discussion of permanence and death and preparing for permanence and death, how to help oneself, how to help others. Okay, great. Sorry. So, any questions about anything that we've discussed this whole module or from your discussion group?
I have a question, please.
Please.
When you talk about, or in the second poem, the seventh Dalai Lama's poem, they talked about the frightening stuff in the intermediate state, and I think that's what you were reading, that it sounds a lot like it's the lower realms and stuff like that. But what, and I know we've come across this before, that it's going to be something frightening. Can you elaborate on what's frightening and why?
A little. Yeah, I know. The second poem was out there. In the first poem, there was a lot of that, for sure. A lot of the frightening stuff in the intermediate state. But yeah, it's commonly said that there'll be different appearances. His Holiness also mentions in his book, there'll be different appearances in their intermediate state. So yeah, I mean, there are different descriptions, but what's going to happen for any individual person at any individual time is totally not certain. But it is like His Holiness gives really good advice. He just says, recognize, let me look further. I was looking in the required reading for today.
Yeah, he says to recognize it's just being created by your mind.
Exactly. That's the main thing.
Okay.
But I think it's a lot like dreams, right? The intermediate state is so much like dreams. So sometimes we have, nice dreams, and sometimes we have really unpleasant dreams where a lot of frightening things appear. But it's all just created by our minds, right? So, like when we're dreaming, if we have a really, terrifying dream, if we can remember at that time it's just a dream, kind of neutralizes it completely, right? But if at that time we don't realize it's a dream, like we're falling from a cliff and we think we're really falling, then it's totally, it really disturbs, disturbs our mind. So, but then why? So your question, the first part of your question is like, well, why do we have those? So why do we have different dreams that we have? It's the same thing, because we have the propensity in our mind to create, to project those kinds of appearances, that kind of reality, and it does, right? But the thing is, in the intermediate state, it's much more extreme than just a dream, because when we're dreaming, our consciousness is anchored in this human body and all the karmic effects that entails. When the intermediate state, our consciousness has separated from this body. And so it's kind of like all that exists is a dream reality. There's no other kind of reality that we're going to wake up to until we take rebirth. So I think it's much more like it's just a dream reality for days and weeks until we take rebirth, and there's no like waking up from it kind of in between. So it's much more I think powerful, and also it's not like there's not this other karma of the actual life you're in. Like when we're in dreaming, we're actually still living within the kind of reality created by this human rebirth karma. And then within that, we're just having this dream experience. So I think the dream experience is kind of weakened or mediated, whereas in the intermediate state, it's like the whole experience is cast by the karma of to experience in that intermediate state, which is largely determined by our future rebirth. So, um, um, yeah. So, for example, if as we're dying, we die with a virtuous mind, probably the intermediate state won't be so unpleasant. No, I don't think it'll be such. It's more likely to be a fairly pleasant experience. But especially if we die with a very non-virtuous state of mind and trigger a karma to take rebirth in a lower realm, then the intermediate state will be similar to the suffering we'd experience in that lower realm. That's one part of it. The other part of it is I think it has to do with the winds in the body, the subtle energies in the body, that when the elements are out of balance, then that causes different appearances to arise in the mind. But yeah, you're right. I mean, like His Holiness says, the main thing is to die with a virtuous, try to die with a very powerful virtuous state of mind, and try to maintain that in the, through the intermediate state. Try to approach everything with a virtuous state of mind and recognize the disturbing or the pleasant. So the disturbing appearances, try not to be terrified by them, by remembering that they're just projections of our own mind. They're just illusory appearances. And the pleasant experiences, try not to generate attachment and craving for them with the same reason, recognizing that they're just projections of our mind. And so try to maintain a mind of that kind of wisdom, recognizing all these appearances are just projections of energy of our karma in our mind. So the way to do that is in everyday life to remember the same thing. I mean, all the appearances of this life are just projections of our karma. It doesn't mean there are no external phenomena, but like, what are they really? We need to analyze. Like just a simple thing is like taking, the colors on the cup. Like, where is the color? Actually, like the color, the different shades of blue and lavender of a mug, or anything you see, the color. Like, what is color actually? Where is the color on the, it looks like it's on the surface of the object, but we know actually that why does color appear? Because there's light that possesses all the wavelengths of the different colors. It shines on the object, and then the object absorbs certain wavelengths and it reflects other wavelengths. So the wavelengths that are not absorbed by the object and are reflected, they reflect back, and that encounters our retina, and then we have perception. So is the color, is it that light but the light that's reflected off the object, why, and that's the color we see, but why? That's not really a property of the object we see, right? And then the way that color is perceived is a function of our, our retina and our eye. So again, does the color exist? It almost seems like the color exists more like in our eye somehow, but we know our eyeball itself, it doesn't see anything. That depends upon the brain, the way that the signals received by the eye are processed by the brain. So then it seems like, well, the color is more like in our brain. But then our brain is just a material thing. It doesn't experience color, and color is something we experience. Or could say, there is color and then there's experience. But if there's no experience of color, then there is no color really. So then it seems like, well, it's more like an experience. So, but that's just an example. So all the kind of things we perceive, it's not like things don't exist out there, they do. But actually what exists very much depends upon our own experience as well. So, and all that comes to, our experience of all that comes to an end. So anyway, long and short is to prepare ourselves for the different things that will appear in the bardo. It's good to practice the mindfulness that what we experience now isn't so solid and not so solid and concrete and real, but it's just largely projections of our mind. Does that answer your question, Eve?
More than enough. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful answer.
Okay. Yeah, we have these science classes in the monastery. So a couple of years ago, and sometimes we have professors from different countries come and teach. So a couple of years ago, there was a couple of professors from, I think, Emory University in Georgia, And anyway, they were teaching us about physics and about colors, color perception. And I asked this, I was curious to know what kind of, answer the science professor would give about where colors exist. So I asked him, like, where is the color actually? Is it on the object or somewhere in between or in our eye? And he was like, yeah, we don't know. I was surprised. I thought he would give a much more kind of concrete, cut and dry answer, but he was like, yeah, it's not really clear. It's a difficult question to answer. It seems like something quite simple, where is color? It doesn't seem like that complicated of a thing, but if you start thinking about actually what it is, and then if color is like that, then, what about shape? And then of course, qualitative properties like, is it good or bad or attractive or unattractive? All those things are very subjective. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if there's nothing else, then I thought we could do, since this is the last kind of formal session. So again, we'll do extensive dedication. We can read the King of Prayers together. But so just to, so again, this module is what, the fourth module. We're doing one module on the mind, one on how to meditate, another module on the whole path. So this is a module on impermanence and death. The next module will be on karma, extensive presentation of karma by Venerable Namjo. And so to finish this module, I'll send out a self-assessment, like questionnaire. I think we'll do a closed book this time. So I'm giving you a forewarning now. I think last time it was open book exam. This one will be closed book. So I'll give you easy questions, but it'll be on basically, the things that are all in the outline. And, largely the things I've already asked questions about. But so the reason I'm doing a closed book is to try to encourage you to try to remember, the things that are in the outlines. So the outline that I've sent you is like, I don't know, 8 pages long or something, but at least the main points, like the 9-point death meditation, try to be able to, recollect all 9 points, the 8 stages of absorption at the time of death, try to recollect, at least the eight stages. I know there's a lot of detail in those, but, at least the main things, what absorbs at what time. What is the main appearance? There's what is it? Mirage-like appearance, and the smoke-like appearance, and the sparks appearing in the smoke, and those things. Yeah, and then like some of the definitions we covered in the first session. What is a person? What is death? What is birth? Yeah, and then there'll be some more opinion questions, like, I don't know, your own opinions about this and that. So yeah, so I'll try to send out that self-assessment in the next week, and then you'll have about 2 weeks to complete it. And then we'll do a little group retreat. It'll be easy because I'll be in the US that time, so I'll be on the East Coast. But so we'll do February 5th and 6th. That's a Saturday, Sunday, and it'll be on the East Coast time. West Coast time. We'll do 4 sessions of 1 hour each. So we'll do 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. So it'll be, I think I just discussed with Mary Ellen, she'll send out, but something like 10 to 12 in the morning, 10 to 12:15 in the morning, and then 2:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. So if you can join, that'd be great, and do live. Otherwise, we'll also record it and send out the videos, so you can also join. So yeah, it'll be 4 1-hour meditation sessions, and each 1-hour session will divide up into two parts, with just a short break in between. And then between the 2 1-hour sessions, we'll have like a 15-minute break. So, and it'll basically just be repeating the same meditations we've already done here during the sessions, with just a little bit more time. And then we'll have interviews again after that. So that is February 7th, 8th, 9th. Yeah, and again, we'll send the timing for that, but it'll be the same timing as the sessions 1 hour earlier. Yeah, February 17th. I know. So that's the way we'll finish. So let's finish this last session now with
Do you want me to show slide
dedication.
prayers? I have
What?
King of Prayers on the PowerPoint. Would you like me to
No,
share
actually,
that?
we won't do King of Prayers. We'll do some verses from. And anyway, I'll share my screen.
Okay.
I have everything here. So yeah, let's first remember all the merit we've created and rejoice. So think of them, whatever merit we've created during these teaching sessions over the last weeks. For one's own effort, remember one's own efforts and the efforts of all the others in the group, and rejoice. How wonderful it is that we give our attention to something so worthwhile, like reflecting on impermanence and death. And then rejoice in all the merits created by all other sentient beings, ordinary beings like ourselves, doing various good things for one another. And then we can rejoice in all the merits of all the enlightened beings, like His Holiness Dalai Lama and others, in the present and the past. So all these oceans of merit gathered together, we can dedicate, especially that we and other sentient beings develop deep realizations into the truth of impermanence, and wisdom, how to deal with the whole process of dying, taking rebirth. And then that all beings experiencing any form of suffering, hunger, thirst, loneliness, abuse, depression, sickness, and so forth, that they be freed from all those forms of suffering and the causes of suffering. And that authentic spiritual teachings that are beneficial for beings continue to flourish for a long time. And that we ourselves may we develop all the realizations on the path to full enlightenment in order that we be of the greatest possible benefit to others. And then bring to mind any other dedications you'd like to make for anyone who's sick or has recently died, is in need of prayers for any reason whatsoever. And their name to mind. And may all your prayers also be fulfilled in accordance with your wish. And then, okay. So here are some verses from the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, Shantideva. So it's in two columns. So we'll read down the left column first and the right column. So may the blind see forms, may the deaf hear sounds, the naked find clothing, the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. And may every disease in the world never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, never suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, or their minds ever be depressed. And those who encounter me, if in those who encounter me a faithful or an angry thought arises, may that eternally become the source for fulfilling all their wishes. May all those who say bad things to me or cause me any other harm, and those who mock or insult me, have the fortune to fully awaken. May I be the doctor and the medicine And may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. May the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May a rain of food and drinks descend to clear away the pain and thirst of thirst and hunger. And during the eon of famine, may I myself change into food and drink. May I become an inexhaustible treasure for those who are, and may these be placed close beside them. May I be a protector for those without one, a guide for all travelers on the way. May I be a bridge, a boat, and a ship for all who wish to cross the ocean. May I be an island for those who seek one, and a lamp for those desiring light. May I be a bed for all who wish to rest, and a servant for all who want a servant. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, for as long as space remains, and for as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, so with that, we conclude the session. Thank you all for Marilyn for hosting, of course, for supporting, and everyone for joining.
Thank you very much, Venerable Iksak, and everyone.
Thank you, Venerable Litzschuk, Mary Ellen and Urs, and
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Venerable, thank you everyone so much.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.